legitimate political discourse slides toward the extreme and then just keeps going until it parks somewhere between crazy and scary, it becomes our third story in the countdown. Joe, not Joe, the plumber, not really a plumber, warmly reminisces about a time when lawmakers could be shot. And Senator Jim DeMint thinks his fellow extremists should take to the streets to stop all that socialism. Joe Wurzelbacher first. At CPAC, Mr. Plummer said that if he were a congressman, he would, quote, probably be in jail because he would be, quote, slapping some member. Nice, but there's more. Now, stop that. He explained that he would be doing more than just slapping a member who spoke badly of the troops. Quote, back in the day, really, when people would talk about our military in a poor way, somebody would shoot him, and there'd be nothing said about that because they knew it was wrong. What day was that, Joe? 44 BC? And yet there's another CPAC contender for the most out there award. Senator Jim DeMint, Republican of South Carolina, told his audience that President Obama is, quote, the world's best salesman of socialism. And he added that conservatives might need to, quote, take to the streets to stop America's slide into socialism. Meanwhile, back at the Be Careful About Certain Emails ranch, there's Mayor Dean Groves of Los Alamitos in California having apologized for sending around this racist watermelon joke. The mayor has now announced his resignation effective the 2nd of March. Let's call in Washington Post columnist and associate editor at also an MSNBC political analyst, Eugene Robinson. Good evening, Gene.
Evening, Keith.
Well, part one of what are they thinking? To whom outside this core of extremists do they think they are appealing and they believe them with some of this stuff, particularly Wurzelbacher, about the good old days when you could just shoot a congressman for talking bad about the troops?
I'm thinking maybe this is all directed at the suits at Comedy Central, and this is all just some sort of giant appeal for a show, you know, CPAC Live. This is getting really bizarre and entertaining in a sense. It would be more entertaining, I think, if there weren't this sort of sinister edge to it, you know, about shooting and the good old days and you know, that awful racist email they got sent around and everything. This is some sort of psychic implosion, I think, that's taking place in one of our two major parties. Plus
taking to the streets, which, I mean, I suppose if you said it mildly enough, it means just protesting, but that doesn't sound like he's talking about just protesting when DeMint says that. And that leads to, you know, what are they thinking part two? In some private moment, has it occurred to anybody in there that some of these remarks are in fact bordering on the incendiary, that, you know, between this and a poll at the Sean Hannity website about which kind of revolution would you like, that there might just be an incitement to violence here?
You have to hope that this has occurred to somebody, that this is way out of line, beyond the pale. But so far, I've got to say, there's no evidence of that. I mean, we're not hearing respected figures in the Republican Party coming out to denounce this sort of, I was going to say loose language, but really insane language and ahistorical language and just general craziness. And we're not hearing that. So maybe it's not occurring to people. Maybe the elders of the party are just kind of worried about trying to get their act together and not paying such close attention.
Well, when you are paying attention to somebody like Joe Wurzelbacher, who just was, you know, plucked out of the middle of nowhere as a campaign stunt and is suddenly being given a voice when he seems to have genuine delusions about American history, you know, it's something he might have seen in a movie somewhere, maybe. I don't know where he gets some of this stuff. But when you're going to him for guidance, shouldn't there be somebody in the back of the room going, I don't think this guy knows what he's talking about?
Everybody should be going. You know, I was going to make a crack about Joe, you know, longing for the days of the Alien and Sedition Acts or something like that, but he wouldn't have a clue what I was talking about, so it'd be completely lost. The guy is an idiot, and the fact that he gets this sort of forum to be, frankly, an idiot, and I think I'm speaking objectively here, is truly amazing and speaks to a certain, you know, you could say that conservatism was the fountain of ideas for 20 years in this country, and you know, they might have been bad ideas or good ideas, but they were ideas. This is incoherence. These are not ideas. This is just blather, and it's kind of dangerous blather.
Right, and he shows up to a book signing the day before CPAC opens and sells 5 books in Washington, D.C. There is at least, it appears, and this is the weird thing about this, and in light of my next question, it appears the public is, as usual, well ahead of the politicians, and particularly well ahead of the more politicians you get in one room, the more likely it is that the average American is 5 years ahead of them, rather than 4 years, one at a time. But you know, in the campaign, the cries of socialism, and sometimes socialism married to racism, these things failed, and now the socialism charge is back. It's only 4 months ago that it failed, and yet they've returned to it. Is that desperation, stupidity, you know, brain damage, short-term memory loss? What causes that?
Well, if you were to listen to the words of Albert Einstein, who defined insanity as doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, then I suppose it would be insanity. The socialism thing, they tried when he was a candidate. It didn't work. It's certainly not going to work when he's president. But, you know, again, somebody in that movement needs to think of something new to say that fits today's reality and people's vision of what's actually happening in the world, as opposed to what's happening inside these fevered rooms at CPAC. And until that happens, you know, more insanity.
That sentence might have ended after the word think. They need to think. Eugene Robinson of the Washington Post and MSNBC. As always, Gene, a pleasure. Have a good weekend.
You too, Keith.
Well, the votes are in.